In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the 2024 electoral map. Based on the latest polling averages for each state, this will be the most thorough breakdown you'll find, where we analyze every state with available polling data to give you a clear sense of where the race to 270 electoral votes currently stands. By the end of this video, you'll have a much clearer understanding of the competitive landscape heading into the election. We'll start with the West Coast and move across the country, breaking down the polling numbers and discussing what they mean for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump as they battle for the presidency. So let's jump right into it. First up, we have Washington, where Kamala Harris is currently leading by 13.8. This is a state that Joe Biden won by a massive margin in 2020, specifically by 19 points. So the fact that Harris's lead is noticeably smaller should be a concern for Democrats. That being said, it's still a relatively safe state for Harris, and on our map, Washington will be categorized as likely blue. Even though the margin is smaller than it was for Biden, the state is still expected to stay in the Democratic column. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Moving down to Oregon. Harris holds a much narrower lead of just 5 points in the only poll we have between her and Trump. This places Oregon in the lean blue category on our map. Oregon has traditionally been a Democratic state, but these numbers indicate a shift toward a more competitive race, which could spell trouble for Harris in the long run. In California, Harris's home state, things are much more secure for the Democrats. She's ahead by 24.5 points, making California the first solid blue state on this map. California has long been a Democratic stronghold, and it's highly unlikely that Trump will make any inroads here, especially considering Harris's deep ties to the state. Now, let's move over to Nevada. One of the key battleground states, Harris currently holds a razor-thin lead of just 1.1. Given Nevada's recent history of polling inaccuracies where Democrats were often overestimated, it's very likely that Trump could outperform the polls here. In fact, one outlier Bloomberg poll shows Harris with a 7-point lead, but that skews the average in her favor. If we take that outlier into account, Trump is in a much better position than the numbers suggest. However, based purely on polling averages, Nevada is going to be marked as tilt blue on our map, though it's worth noting that this is far from a lock for Harris. Next, we have Arizona, another critical swing state. Trump leads by 1 point in the polling, and most polls show him consistently ahead. This is particularly significant because Trump lost Arizona in 2020, and Joe Biden flipped it by a very narrow 0.3 margin. This time, however, it looks like Trump is poised to take the state back, and it's going to be our first tilt red state on the map. Arizona's 11 electoral votes are crucial, and this shift indicates that Trump is gaining ground in a state that Biden managed to win last time around. Moving on to Colorado and New Mexico. These two states were comfortably won by Joe Biden in the last election. In Colorado, Harris leads by 11 points in the only poll available, though it's worth noting that this is a Democratic-sponsored poll. So while Harris is expected to win here, it's possible that her margin may not be as wide as the poll suggests. Nonetheless, based on the current data, Colorado will be categorized as likely blue. In New Mexico, Harris is ahead by 8.5 percentage points, but recent polling shows her lead shrinking, with the most recent poll putting her ahead by just 6 points. Despite this tightening, New Mexico remains in the likely blue category for now. Next up is Texas, a state that has been heavily underestimated by pollsters in past elections. In 2020, Trump was expected to win by just 1 percentage point, but ended up winning by nearly 6 points. As of now, Trump leads by 5.2 against Harris in the polls. Based on historical trends, it's likely that Trump will outperform the current polling numbers, potentially winning the state by a much larger margin. For now, though, Texas is classified as lean red on our map, giving Trump a crucial 40 electoral votes from one of the biggest prize states for the GOP. Now let's look at the states in the middle of the country. We have some large swaths of territory that are expected to go solidly for Trump. In Utah, Trump leads by a massive 32 points, making it a solid red state. Montana follows a similar pattern, with Trump ahead by 17.5 points, and it too will be solid red. There's also an important Senate race in Montana where Republicans are on track to flip a Democratic seat, which would help them regain control of the Senate. In North Dakota, Trump is ahead by 27 points. And in Nebraska, Two polls show Trump leading by an average of 16.5 points. While Nebraska divides its electoral votes by district, Trump will easily win the state overall. However, Harris is leading Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, which is more liberal. So, while most of Nebraska will be solid red, the 2nd district will be tilt blue. In Oklahoma, Trump's lead is at 16 points, but he's expected to win the state by a much larger margin when the votes are tallied. The rest of the central states, including Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Kansas, and the remainder of Nebraska, will easily go to Trump as solid red. Moving on to Alaska. We have some polling data showing Trump with an 8-point lead. However, it's likely that Trump's actual support is being underestimated here, and he'll win by a larger margin. Still, based on the available data, Alaska is classified as likely red on our map. On the flip side, Hawaii, a traditionally Democratic state, will go solid blue for Harris. While we don't have recent polling data from Hawaii, there's no indication that this state will shift away from the Democrats in any meaningful way. The most competitive region in the country, the Midwest. This area is home to 3 crucial swing states: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These states have been battlegrounds in the last 2 elections, and they're shaping up to be just as critical in 2024. In Wisconsin, Harris leads by just 0.8, making it one of the tightest races in the country. Historically, polls in Wisconsin have overestimated Democratic support. For example, in 2016, Hillary Clinton was projected to win Wisconsin by 5 points, but Trump ended up flipping the state. In 2020, Biden won Wisconsin by a much narrower margin than expected. Given this history, it's likely that Trump could outperform the polls here again. But based purely on the current data, Wisconsin is marked as tilt blue. In Michigan, Harris has an even smaller lead of 0.7. Michigan is traditionally a more liberal state compared to the rest of the Midwest, but the polling indicates that it's going to be incredibly close this time around. Like Wisconsin, Michigan is classified as tilt blue, but it could easily flip to Trump when all the votes are counted. Now let's talk about Pennsylvania, the biggest swing state with 19 electoral votes. This state could very well decide the entire election. Right now, polling shows a tie between Harris and Trump, but Trump has been leading in most of the recent surveys. Given his track record in Pennsylvania, where he narrowly won in 2016 and came close in 2020, Pennsylvania is marked as tilt red on our map. Moving down to the south, we have a lot of solidly red states. In Missouri, Trump leads by 10 points, and the state is classified as likely red. Arkansas and Tennessee are both solid red, with Trump leading by 15 and 26 points respectively. In West Virginia, Trump is ahead by 27 points, another solid red state. In South Carolina, Trump leads by 10 points, making it a likely red state. We don't have any recent data from states like Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana, but these states are also expected to go solid red for Trump. Now, let's talk about Virginia, which is surprisingly competitive this election cycle. Harris leads by 4.8, but that's much narrower than Biden's 10-point margin of victory in 2020. Virginia will be classified as lean blue, but it's definitely one to watch as the race tightens. In North Carolina, Trump leads by 0.6, and the state is expected to stay in the GOP column just as it did in 2016 and 2020. North Carolina is marked as tilt red, while Georgia follows a similar pattern, with Trump leading by 1.5. Georgia was a major battleground in 2020, but it seems to be shifting back toward the Republicans, so Georgia is also categorized as tilt red. Finally, we come to Florida, the biggest swing state in the country. Trump currently leads by 6, and recent trends indicate that the state is moving away from its traditional swing state status and becoming a more reliable Republican state. Florida is marked as lean red, but Trump could easily win by a larger margin, solidifying his grip on the Sunshine State. So, based on the polling data, this map shows Trump on track to win 281 electoral votes, with Harris at 257. This means that Trump is currently in the lead and has a clear path to victory, though there's still plenty of time for things to change. Harris can hold onto the Midwest and flip Pennsylvania back to blue. She could pull off a win. But right now, Trump is in the driver's seat. Thank you for watching this detailed breakdown of the 2024 electoral map. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more updates as we get closer to Election Day.